What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we're going to be talking about Hellions, number 11 by Zeb Wells and Steven Segovia. And in this video, we are going to learn a little bit more about what exactly the Hellions have been going through thanks to masterminds manipulating their minds with these illusions to keep them trapped in place for Arcade's next venture with Murder World. And more importantly, what move Mr. Sinister is about to pull that is likely, maybe not so much the beginning of his move to defy Krakoa, but a more open defiance against the Quiet Council. We are going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so when we pick this comic back up, one of the first things we learn is that Mastermind has been manipulating all of the Hellions this entire time since the previous issue, and that even though to some characters like Quanin, who to her, it has been 50 years of her going up against her weird, evil doppelgangers that have been sent to kill her because Mastermind has been sending these doppelgangers of Quanin after her. She has been killing them repeatedly over and over and stacking the bodies up for 50 years in her mind. She has even grown older in her mind as a result of this. This is actually incredibly significant when you consider the fact that Quanin is a telepath. She would, if anyone else, would be able to more easily suss out the reality in all of this, but we also do have to remember she is not a telepath on the same level as, say, I don't know, Betsy Braddock or Jean Grey. So maybe that is why she wasn't able to suss it out. But we do also know when we encounter the character Greycrow, we see that once again, Zeb Wells is toying with us at this relationship between the two characters. It's something that's actually going to come up on multiple occasions throughout this comic, the fact that Quanin and John Greycrow have become incredibly close. This is not anything that's up for speculation, it's just fact. Even at a point where they meet eyes with each other and Greycrow has to look away because these are both characters who have been killers, murderers, villains, and right now, neither one of them is quite comfortable coping with what they used to be and what they are becoming. So of course, they are not going to lock eyes for very long with one another. But what we do know is that in terms of John Greycrow, whereas Quanin thought that it's been 50 years, for him, it's felt more like it's been a month at most, or maybe even yesterday. But the truth of the matter is that Arcade has been holding them in place for a week. Mastermind has been tirelessly working his powers to hold them in this illusion, and it's falling apart, to say the least. Arcade still has the upper hand, and he is, of course, still using his confirm checks and balances, using someone off-site to make sure that Arcade is seeing what Arcade is seeing. And he still has Mr. Sinister building him his clone farm, which Mr. Sinister, still missing teeth and talking in what another character calls a very cartoon duck-like fashion, because what you're basically supposed to be doing is you're supposed to be reading Mr. Sinister's dialogue as if he were Daffy Duck or something along those lines. He has a bit of a lisp going on, like a mega lisp going on right now, but that's neither here nor there. Point is that Mastermind is losing his grip on the Hellions, Quanin especially, and he's fighting as hard as he can to keep everything in check, and the only thing that is keeping him in the game is the fact that his daughter, Lady Mastermind, is being held in a jigsaw-like trap, and Arcade will have her killed if the Hellions break free. Now, of course, the plan is simple. Greycrow and Quanin have to find the others, even though they don't really even remember who the others are. That's the funny part in all this, is that they don't really know who everybody else is. They've kind of been made to forget that the other Hellions exist. However, they do manage to find Havoc rather easily, and once they find Havoc, who apparently is kind of still in his look from the Inferno story arc, if you remember that, where he was with Madeline Pryor and he had the more torn up costume. Well, Madeline Pryor has abandoned him because his worst fear is to be alone, and we're learning more about Havoc in that regard. But now that he's with Grey Crow and Quanin, all bets are off. And what makes this even more interesting is the fact that we find out pretty quickly that Empath, Nanny and Orphan Maker, as well as Wild Child, are all on the run from their respective nightmares, with things like the original Recipe X-Men and multiple versions of Wolverine, Sabretooth, and even Romulus from before, all of them chasing them down. And I love the fact that Nanny has not changed here in this regard. She is still the more hardened version of herself, seeing as how she was resurrected after dying in Morocco. Everybody is fighting off these nightmare illusion versions of the things that they all fear most, because Mastermind is putting them there. But something has happened. While all this is going on, Quanin can feel the strain that Mastermind is going through. While all this is going on, Quanin slips away mentally, and this of course leaves the Hellions open to attack because they don't have their leader. This opens the door for that weird version of Quanin to reappear and start attacking everybody. And while this not Quanin version of herself is running roughshod on the Hellions, Quanin slipped her psyche back into her body. She is now awake again, and she immediately breaks off Miss Locke, who, by the way, is perfectly okay because she, as we learned in the previous issue, she is very much a synthetic, so there's no harm, no foul done there. And of course, Arcade is freaking out because he's trying to wonder if he's seeing what he's seeing and trying to confirm it. And before Quanin can actually kill Mastermind, Mastermind is able to let her know that he is not doing this of his own volition, that Arcade is holding his daughter hostage, and this gives Quanin enough pause to allow Mastermind to take over Arcade's mind and make him see whatever it is that Arcade would want to see that would keep him in line. And of course, the off-site personnel who is monitoring the situation and is ordered to kill Lady Mastermind should Original Recipe Mastermind do anything out of line. This gives him the opportunity to appeal to this person's better nature, because he figures that if Arcade is holding someone over him, then clearly Arcade is holding someone over them. This actually encourages the person to set Lady Mastermind free. Now that said, it's neither here nor there, because Quanin is ready to kill Mastermind for what he has done because of his treachery. But the thing is, this was all an elaborate ruse. When Mastermind learned about what Arcade was going to do, the first person that he went to was Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister decided to make a counter offer to Mastermind, and from there, they worked out this elaborate scheme that would basically turn the tables on Arcade. Mr. Sinister used this as an opportunity. Mr. Sinister is not supposed to have any more clone farms. That was kind of the whole point of the first issue of the Hellions series, when the Hellions were sent to destroy the Essex State Home for Foundlings, which is where one of his clone farms was, and was supposedly the last one. But we also know that he does have a clone farm on Bar Sinister, one that has technically been discovered and one that could very easily potentially get him in trouble with the Quiet Council on Krakoa. So now what he's doing is he went ahead and built the actual clone farm. This isn't something that was rigged to explode, or maybe it was, but this is something he actually intends to use, and he's set it up with parameters and backdoors to make sure that he could control it and use it how he sees fit. He now has an off-site clone farm that Krakoa doesn't know about. And what's going to happen is that he's going to allow Arcade to keep this clone farm, thinking that it's 100% his, but at some point later down the road, when he needs it, he's going to be able to take it over. And this is something that I think a lot of people are not really paying attention to here in regards to what Mr. Sinister is plotting right now as we speak. Think about this. This is dangerous, because for no other reason than the fact that Mr. Sinister having an off-site clone farm. This is something that eerily reeks of Powers of 10, the side story from House of X, where in one of Moira's lives, Mr. Sinister had done something incredibly similar where chimeras were running roughshod in that timeline. And this is not the first hint that we have gotten that this is going to happen. Something tells me that in this particular life, and this may be be the biggest evidence towards this is that all of the different lives that Mora has had, something tells me that in this light, some of those different aspects of those previous lives are going to occur in this life regardless of whatever it is that Mora's plans are, because, we always talk about the fact that time always wants to happen, that even if you go back and try and change things, even though technically this isn't time travel so much as it is alternate lives, just the notion of the fact that sometimes history just likes to repeat itself. And I have a sneaking suspicion that Mr. Sinister's chimeras are going to come into fruition much sooner rather than later, and this may potentially be how we see characters, some of those popular characters like Rasputin, coming back. Now, why get the Hellions involved in all this? Well, because Mr. Sinister needs witnesses. He needs people who are reliable, or at least somewhat reliable, to be able to cover for his story. He can't just walk back into Krakoa and say, hey, we did the deed, we did the job, and not have everybody on board. He needs to make the Hellions believe that they saved the day and not know anything about what Sinister was actually doing. And because this is a no witnesses situation, Mastermind and Lady Mastermind, more specifically, are about to commit a critical sin of Krakoa. And it's that when Quanon demands to know why Mastermind went along with this, knowing that this man could have killed his own daughter, he reveals that, yeah, there was a chance, but he knew that it would all work out. And Mastermind orders his daughter to kill the man that was monitoring her while Mastermind was manipulating the Hellions. Now, of course, I don't think she necessarily kills him directly. She probably uses her illusions to make him do something stupid, so that way it's kind of in a weird moral gray area, maybe. But at the end of the day, Mr. Sinister needs the Hellions, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And more importantly, he wants Quanon to be on board more than anybody else. And while Quanon does not want to be anybody's pawn, the truth of the matter is that Mr. Sinister has cards to play over her that she can't avoid, and it's the fact that he still has her daughter, and that he is even willing to put her in Arcade's clone farm just to make sure that Quanon plays ball. Now, as for the other Hellions, well, how is he going to get them on board? He doesn't have anything over him. Well, that's not what they're going to do. They're not going to manipulate the other Hellions the way they manipulated Quanon. They're simply going to do what they've already done, and that's have Mastermind make them believe that they saved the day, that they were heroes, that they saved Mr. Sinister, and they stopped Arcade's evil plan. The whole thing with Mastermind is even more interesting considering the fact that he doesn't go back with them to Krakoa. It seems like he just prefers to not be there. He decides that he just wants to continue living out his life, just living in the normal, regular human world. I mean, hell, if you can pass for human, then, why not? And if you can make people think whatever you want, even better. But Mastermind is also another way we learn that, yeah, Grey Crow does, in fact, have feelings for Quanon. He confirms that he looked in Grey Crow's mind and saw it. But at the end of it all, Quanon is in an actionable position. What is she gonna do? Is she gonna go along with everything? Is she gonna keep Mr. Sinister's secret? And more importantly, is she going to tell the other Hellions or try and convince them that something's not right? Is she going to try and break the illusion that Mastermind has put in their heads? We don't really know, but I can tell you one thing. Quanon, regardless of what Mr. Sinister is holding over her head, she is not happy. Not in the slightest. And something tells me she's gonna turn. And she may not necessarily dime Mr. Sinister out, but she will definitely hand him a receipt. This issue, once again, Hellions, while it never really seems like Hellions is going anywhere particular with the overall narrative of Krakoa and the X-Men and all this other stuff, I do always feel like Hellions is still one of the more consistently interesting books. It just is what it is, and Zeb Wells is out here doing the Lord's work as usual, writing this, crafting this amazing story that I'm just really in for. And I also love the fact that we're getting, I think personally, a little bit better insight into Quanon's mentality and her personality post House of X than I think we even got in Brian Hill's Fallen Angels. And I love the fact that she's still getting, between this and Excalibur recently, she has been getting a lot of development, and I'm totally here for it. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video all over the internet and with all your friends so they'll know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to Hellions and Reign of X. Also, on your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you think about Hellions number 11. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.